This is the Initiates Podcast. Here, we create space to explore the path of initiation as we reawaken the forgotten wisdom that resides within us all. I am your host and guide, Natalie Grace. Join me every Thursday for an enlightening exploration of contemporary spirituality. It's my honour to journey with you. Welcome, friends. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with my mentor and guide, Golden Vee. Vee is a clairvoyant psychic medium, amazing channel, and host of the awesome Dimensions of the Soul podcast. She's also a really unique artist, translating visions from her dreams into cosmic collage that she shares with the world via her Instagram. Vee is an incredible soul and is one of the most authentic people I've encountered so far on my spiritual journey. She has a warm, engaging, and joyous spirit and has so much to teach us all about the experience of multidimensionality that it literally overflows out of her in the most delightful way. Vee is a great teacher who offers psychic and intuitive development classes along with spiritual mentorship. She also offers a dedicated session where she introduces you to your spirit guides, and that's how I met her in person. I'm sure all of her offerings are life-changing, and I'm excited to do more one-on-one work with Vee in the future, but I can't stress enough how important a portal the Spirit Guides intro session was for me on my journey. I talk about this fact a little more in our chat, but that meeting felt like the activation I needed to move out of a very deep dark night of the soul and upward into alignment with my highest path of destiny. In the session, Vee literally introduced me to my main spirit guides. They showed themselves, shared their names, their symbols, their specific roles in my life, and the messages they wanted me to hear at that exact moment. It was so empowering to receive the message that I'm supported at all times and that all they wanted for me was to try, that the outcome didn't actually matter. The will to try was all that was important, no matter how small a step, every step counts. And at that time, I was taking no steps. I was so stuck. And this message was something that awakened me to the real nature of why I'm here, to experience, to face fear, to create, to enjoy life. All the pressure that I felt at that moment was released when I received that message from my guides. It was so empowering, and it unlocked new movement within me that led me on a journey of healing, creation, and awakening. It was a profound initiation. Through the guides, I came to know myself and the energy of Source. This connection provided me with the guidance to step onto the path that has led me to this moment, speaking to you all on this podcast and sharing my gratitude in conversation with my human guide, Vee. So I invited Vee to come onto the show to talk to me about spirit guides and the role they have played in her initiation story. She shares some amazing wisdom about the different types of spirit guides we can encounter, along with some practical tips on how we can all connect and communicate with our spirit guides, regardless of our psychic skill level. I really hope you enjoy the flow and energy of this episode and that you're able to take away a new perspective on spirit guides and the roles they play in our lives. If you're interested in working with Vee, check the show notes where I've popped all her links. All right, let's journey with Golden Vee. Welcome, Vee, to the Initiates podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I came across you when I was in this phase of awakening, and I listened to podcasts constantly, but I was searching for something more than just news and politics and all like the real dense, heavy energy stuff that I was listening to at the time. And I don't even know how I came across your podcast, but I did, and I listened, and your energy just resonated so strongly with me. And I just binged all your episodes, and I ended up reaching out to you for a spirit guide session where you really changed my life, to be honest. I knew I had some gifts. I had clairaudience since I was a child, but I wasn't really open to it. And I had no idea who my guides were or how I could connect to them. So hearing you talk about their pivotal role in our lives, and the jobs they do in helping us on this plane, and then meeting with you in person with this introduction you gave me was so pivotal on my journey. So I'm super honored to have you here with me today. And I'm so excited to speak with you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Like, honestly, you got my bitch ass have like tears in my eyes and stuff. You got a girl getting emotional already. I was not planning on this, but I'm very deeply touched. I am so freaking honored to be a part of your wonderful journey. And I am so excited to be on your podcast because you have an abundance worth of wisdom and an abundance worth of knowledge. And I'm just literally just a speck of dust on your, well, I mean, not to demean myself, but you know what I mean? I'm a speck of this beautiful tapestry of life. And I'm happen to just be, we found each other through the podcast world, you know? And you know what's funny? You're not the first person who mentioned that. I've had many people say, V, I don't know how I found you. It's like a weird like warp in time. Like we just forget how we find each other sometimes. You know, it's like that's how I feel like sometimes. Like if you think about even outside of the podcast, if you think of anything else in life, you ever think of like someone who's really important to you, or you meet, you're like, I don't even remember how we met. It's like that's how you know it's just like some kind of soul shit. You know, some soul connection things going on. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here. So happy to talk about guides and the fact that I'm so blessed and I'm so happy that it was able to make such an impact on you, learning more about your guides and I think it's like we're all walking this lifetime together, and it can feel very isolating and lonely when you're going through really dark times. And we all are aware of it, whether you're spiritual or not. Even in the religious context, there's guardian angels, which just they are real. Obviously, guardian angels are real, but we all know, whether you're spiritual or not, that spirit guides exist. We know there's some kind of spirit, even if people joke about it. Animal spirit, my spirit animal. We all know there is some kind of being or entity trying to help us out, whether it's in an angelic form, spirit guide form, whatever being form it is. And I think we're all on this quest to just feel like, number one, help me. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in this life. But number two, it's good to know that, and like I said, we're all looking for that reassurance that A, we are doing the right thing. That B, there is someone out there actually sending me signals it's like a cheat sheet through life, but without cheating. It's kind of like you already as a soul possess this knowledge. It's just these guides are just here to remind you, to send you little signs and signals. But then you can take, because it starts out as signs and signals, right? Like, what they say in, what is it like, oh, spirit guides, show me this sign. I see 333 all the time. I see 1111, the number thing. So it starts out small, like the numbers. That gets people's awareness. So I realize spirits, whether it's spirit guides, relatives, whoever the hell's up there, everyone, obviously everyone, there's a lot of spirits up there, but it starts off with the numbers. The numbers is the first thing that, how you know that someone's trying to get your attention from the other side. And then, so it starts off with the sign symbols, but like when you did my session with the class, it actually takes it to another level where you start to realize, like, wait a minute, I don't just have to settle for just little signs and symbols just to be reassured. I can have a full-blown conversation. Hold up, I can even channel messages that deal with my life in this world and how to make my life better and how to make other people and help other people grow and myself grow. So it starts off with just a little baby signs, and then it gets bigger to where it's like, I can have a full-blown relationship. I can have a full-blown friendship with these beings. And technically that's all they're here to do. They are here to help us through our everyday life, and to, anyone can channel anyone. I think it's like, oh God, you got to be like really gifted. So like, I feel like there's like a little stigma, like, oh shit, you got to be born with that shit, to be able to connect and to get long-winded messages. Because it's one thing to get a number or like, show me a sign of this, and you might get it. But I think even as humanity, no matter what, right, we always want more, We always want more. And so with wanting more, um, and it's not about wanting more. I think it's just wanting a deeper connection with ourselves. We as souls came here, or at least a part of the reason, to not only remember our real self, which is how spirit guides are. We really are light beings in this body, right? We came here to remember ourselves, to connect more deeply with ourselves in this world. And it's done through our relationships. It's done through every experience. It's done through literally our every breath we take. Anything we do with love or fear, whatever, we have free will, right? So, and our guides are just here to help. When I always use this terminology, have you ever heard of the term accountability partner? If someone's like trying to, I've seen it in at least here in America, people say, I need an accountability partner to go to the gym. So someone to keep me accountable.
Okay.
You ever heard of someone keeping you? And so basically, what I say jokingly, because I love a good joke, I love to crack some jokes, gotta have a sense of humor in life. I always like to say spirit guides are accountability partners in spirit. They're helping us. We came as souls, we had to set things we want to do as a soul. Of course, most importantly, we're here to experience life, to experience ourselves in this physical form, right? But we have other little random shit we had from other lifetimes. We may want to, tie up loose ends. And so basically these guys are like, hey, I'm going to keep you accountable. You wanted this for your life, because no one designs their life but us. Even on the other side, we are actually designing the blueprint, right? And so they're just here to make sure we follow through, and they're helping us follow through. So it's just magical. My life changed completely when I really started to actually connect with my guides. It was a game changer, because I would get just psychic information as a child. I would see ghosts. I would see dead people walking around. I would have an old man talk to me at age 7 years old. Literally, I thought I was going crazy. Yeah, I would see there was this old man, and he would I would get into an argument with my mom or something, or I'd have a bad day at school. I was in maybe first grade, second grade. So I had been 7 years old. And I remember I'll never forget the first time a spirit really visually showed up for me, because I'm clairvoyant, was I got an argument, and he goes to me, and I'm in my room, just whining and just punching my bed. I was that kid, punching the bed and shit. And next thing I know, I see this it's as you would expect, in movies, or see-through. You know what I mean? So you see the see-through I saw the see-through man, and he said to me, you should say you're sorry to your mother, and you should practice forgiveness. And that was my first technical channeled message, was say I'm sorry to my mom, and how forgiveness would make me feel better. He says, you're going to continue to feel like this until you forgive. And now that I'm an adult, I think he also meant forgive myself, because I did not think about that. You're little, so you're not thinking of that. So, but he did say you should say you're sorry, you'll feel better. And he was right. I mean, technically he was right. But that was my actual first channel message, forgiveness, literally. So, and it started out like that. But I thought it was just a random, like I said, I would get random, because I've always had the gift since I was little, but I would get random psychic hits. But I never had that deep actual relationship. How you can call up a friend in our physical life and actually could talk to them hey, I had this kind of day, blah, blah, blah. Or a therapist, if you have a therapist, spirit guides can be a fucking spiritual therapist too, whatever you want them to be, they'll be. But I didn't have that connection. Just because you're psychic doesn't mean you're going to have a full blown big ass relationship with your guides. You have to use your own free will. And that's what I've learned along the way, is utilizing my own free will to get more messages, to connect with them more and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I just talked your ear off. But I can talk.
Well, I do, and I love it. That's really great. What an amazing, obviously the title of this show is The Initiates, and I really enjoy speaking to people about their initiation. And it sounds like as far as your spiritual journeying goes, that visit from that man was a huge initiation for you. And those words of wisdom were so profound that they've stuck with you to this day. And they can't come from a little child. They're gifted from somewhere else, right?
Exactly. Thank you. Exactly. And you know what? That was my initiation. Wow. See, everything led up to this moment. I don't think anything's random. I never thought about it or seen it in that light. And that's exactly why I love connecting with people like yourself and humanity in general, because you helped me see things in a way that I didn't really think. That is literally the perfect word, pun intended. Initiate's podcast, and I was literally initiated at that time. I was, and you're right. How would I, at 7 years old, come up with this wisdom? Like, I should say. Usually, a parent tells the kid to say you're sorry. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me to conjure that up at such like 7 years old. Yeah, you're right. It was totally them, and it was my first actual experience where I was like, okay, shit's getting real, you know. And I thought it was just an imaginary guy friend, you know, not like in a romantic way, because he was old as hell. He looked old. So that's another thing. Some old grandpa this information too.
Yeah. So given like we recognize that as a point of initiation for you, what did that open up? Like what happened to you after that moment? What did you learn about connecting? Did more guides come to you? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So actually, yeah, great question. So what happened was, after that initial experience, it would start to continue to happen more and more. I think it kind of was like the thing that opened me up, if that made sense, because I followed through with the advice, because I actually genuinely like listened to this old ass man. And I noticed like maybe it went quiet. That's another thing I've learned. Sometimes they go quiet. And so it was quiet for about a year, a couple years, maybe 1 to 2 years after that. It wasn't until like late elementary school, because I was in like first, second grade at that time. It wasn't until like fifth grade and then going into middle school is when it kicked back up again, probably because I was going through emotional, you know, in middle school, you're like age, maybe 13, 12, 13, 14. So it's like, you know, emotions are revving up. You're really out there in the world getting to see different personalities. It's not as like rose-colored lenses when you're like first grade or, you know, very young. So at that time it kicked back up. And so I noticed that, there would be a female. So that's when it changed. So that's when I realized, okay, maybe the man went away. And again, at that age and at that time frame, no one in my family was talking about spirits. I grew up Catholic. So actually this was technically blasphemy. So it's not like I shared this with people. And I had no knowledge. It's not like at that time, you're just like, let me Google what spiritual thing. There's no terminology when you're a kid. There's nothing to go off of. So for me, I'm seeing a random woman once again, and in a kid-like perspective, I thought it was a what? Imaginary friend. And so I find that, you know, that was the only title I could use. So then that opened me up to meeting a woman. And then this woman would come to me at random times, and right before I fall asleep, which is kind of funny now that I'm older, I realize spirits love coming to us right before we fall asleep, because we're in that altered state of consciousness. Have 1 foot here in this reality, 1 foot in there. So it's like, it's a good way to kind of get, you know, talk to us. And so I've noticed she would come a lot at those times. She wasn't as bold. The first old man came in the middle of the day, you know, at like 4 p.m. But this woman, different. And so it started out with her just giving me advice about friendships. I was too nice, you know, I was just way too like, you know, forgiving. I mean, it's good to be forgiveness seems like a big pun intended from the old man, but seriously, I was way too like excusing people's behaviors. Let's just say they treat me like shit and I excuse it. So she would teach me how to like do the hard thing. I didn't want to lose friends. So it's like, I don't want to let go of her. You know, I don't want to say this because I know she won't talk to me if I tell her this. So it's like, I would actually argue. That's another thing that would happen. I would argue back and forth with the spirit. So now I'm fucking mentally ill. You know, at this point, I'm arguing with this lady in my mind. And that's another thing. So obviously clairvoyance is huge because I always saw them. With her, I only seen her once. After I seen her once, she never appeared physically to me anymore. She only popped up in my thoughts. So that's another thing. Another thing I've noticed change when I was in like middle school. So flash forward, that's just a bullshit years. I mean, they're not bullshit years. They still matter. But flash forward to the important shit, which would be in my early 20s. That's when things really got real for me. I started reading books on Buddhism. I think when I was like 16, I read all religious books. I wanted to find the answer. You know, I always felt like there was some kind of answer. So I read Buddhism, Judaism, fucking anything you could think of, I read, you know, and I would try to bring myself a lot of knowledge and try to understand where I was coming from, because I still never thought of the word psychic. Isn't that funny? All these experiences never dawned on me. never dawned on me, right? I'm just thinking I'm just nuts at this point. So it wasn't until then I finally get to my early 20s. That's when the internet really, I mean, I know I sound so old. I mean, I'm 31. I'm making it sound like, oh, I'm like 80. But I guess I was more on, more shit, more social media was getting popular, things was like really popping up. And I started to, oh my God, how can I forget? The most life-changing moment outside of those I had an argument with before he was my husband. Well, he is my husband, but at that time we were just dating. It was still new. We had an argument and I said, I'm sleeping on the couch. I don't even want to be in this room. So I laid on the couch one night in my feels and my emotions and my anger. I'm laying there on my mom's grave. This is how seriously this vision was the most clearest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm laying there on the couch and it's about 2 a.m. and I'm looking up at the ceiling and all of a sudden a golden spiral of light keeps coming down from the ceiling in slow motion. My hand, I start to reach, I said, real. And so I reach out my hand, and of course it's an energy because it goes right through. But even though it goes right through, circling through my hand, this gold spiral of energy coming from the freaking ceiling. And I remember thinking, oh my God, and my eyes were open. It wasn't closed. That's what's insane about it. I also felt a warmth. There was a warmth with this golden spiral of energy. And I felt warm like I was being hugged. And that's when I realized, okay, there's obviously more to my imaginary things that I experienced as a child. And this is it shook me to the core where I couldn't, that was the tipping point where I realized this is it. There's something going on with me. Like this is something unique. And so that's when I Googled gold spiral. And from there, that was it. That's when I read about angels and sacred geometry. And that's when I was like, oh, this makes sense. I had dreams about this because I would always have crazy dreams as a child, dreams that would later come true. My dream state was very active, and so, or like, I share on my podcast about the alien dreams, I've been visited since forever. So I've always had weird shit going on, but once I Googled the golden spiral from the ceiling, that's when everything changed. And that's when I realized there's a lot of beautiful beings around me. And that's when I saw the term spirit guides. And then that's when I was like, oh, this all makes fucking sense. And then I saw angels. Technically, I think what they said online at that time, the golden thing was actually an angel thing. It's an angelic thing or something like that. It's different than spirit guides, I guess. But I'm like, fuck it. It's still someone trying to get my attention. So that was really what opened everything up. That's when I researched the golden spiral, which led me to the terminology spirit guides, which then led me to actually saying, let me take an active role and actually seeing what the hell this is. So I read a book on spirit guides. I remember when I was like maybe 21, I'm 31 right now. So literally 10 years ago, when I was 21, read a book on what it was. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And basically it was validating all my experiences. And I think if you think about it as us humans, having our experiences validated, it's not about like, validate me so I can look cute. It's beyond that. It's a deeper validation, like a soul validation. And it was so free to read something, to have that kind of validation. And I remember I said it 10 years ago, literally to the dot. I'm now 31. And I said, I hope that I don't want anyone to go through what I went through, where you're walking around aimlessly trying to figure out these things and what they mean. I said, if anything, I hope one day that I can help be that person for someone to explain what's going on with them. And it's kind of ironic because I think it kind of happened. If you think, I don't know, in a weird way, it's kind of happened. I didn't want anyone to go through what I went through. I mean, I think now thinking about it, pun intended, I think we all have to go through this period of questioning ourselves, as much as I don't want people to go through that. But I think that now in hindsight, it is important. I think it's literally a part of the journey to be in that alone space, to question ourselves, to question what this is, just to finally at the right time to lead us to where we need to be. Obviously, as you hear that it took me many years to realize what it was, because I was just defining it as human terms. I had no one esoteric or spiritual around me. It was all religious people and people who just partying all the time, who would never think about this stuff. So I had no one to talk to. So I had no one but books, and research to talk to about it. So basically after that, in my 20s, when I finally realized what spirit guides are, that's when I said, I'm going to take an active role with actually seeing who they are. And so I would do little exercises and I would do little games. I would say, okay, first it would start out with, show me the more specific you are, the better it gets, honestly. I always do exercises like this with others too, where it's like, show me an image of sometime today, I would say like a dolphin or something. I want to see a dolphin, or show me a sign that you're around, but you see a dolphin. Now, that's me trying to be in control of it. Obviously, they can just say, hell no, bitch, you're not going to be in control over this and tell me to bring you a dolphin. But sometimes they will, as a way just to, if they know your personality type. Spirit guides play off of our personality types. They know damn well who the hell we are. They know I'm sassy. They know I can be rebellious. So of course, yeah, you're gonna have to fight for your place in my life. But that's how I always see it. But yeah, that's literally how it started. And that's when I started to actually do the little signs and symbols. And then it happened out of thin air. This is how it happened, out of random thin air. What year are we in? 2022. I'm like, what year is this? 2022. So I think about 2012, 2013, 2014-ish. Around that time, that was when everything kind of changed for me. That is when more alien experiences, more galactic stuff started happening. I mean, they already were visiting me way back in the day. I would have dreams of UFOs and things, and I would have dreams of having a baby, even though I was really young. It made no fucking sense. You know what I mean? Like, I was so fearful. I remember I was like 7 years old, and I would tell my mom, I'd say, can you get pregnant without having sex? And she would look at me like I'm insane. I had that weird feeling that I already was pregnant or was going to have a baby. And I'm like, I'm 7 years old. And I remember having dreams of like babies. Yeah, right? Crazy. But anyway, enough about not talking about alien shit. But basically, back to spirit guides. Because I talk about alien shit all day. But I love spirit guides. I love spirit guides even more though, because yeah, I could talk about aliens, but I love spirit guides too. They're my favorite to talk about. Honestly, they are one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm really glad to be here. But I would say in 2014, 2013, I don't know what year. It was like 2011 through 2014. That's when conversations started to happen. So it went from, show me a sign of this, show me little things like this. And I would get like one word here and there. And that's the thing with spirit guide communication. You'll get like one word, a couple words, and then as what I'm learning, as an intuitive, we got to put the different puzzle pieces of their messages to make the overall message. So we get little puzzle pieces, and we have to form the overall psychic message by using our logic and intuition. So if you get one thing clear or let go, and then you got to obviously assume, what are they talking about? And they often play upon different parts of our senses or thoughts and stuff to get messages across. But I didn't start getting more than one word until like I said, 2012, 13, 14, around those years. Out of nowhere, my guide would come in and would say like, oh, so why, the heart, I don't know. They would just start explaining different concepts to me. Specifically, my spirit guide, Zalo, he would explain different concepts to me about space and science and things that I don't know. And that's another thing, guys, everyone who's listening, is if you know your own interests, what your brain usually thinks about, and all of a sudden you're getting random pieces of downloads or information in your head about stuff you've never really been into, stuff you never think about, and all of a sudden it's popping up in your head, something that doesn't even sound like you, definitely a sign that it's probably your guides, because that's what happened to me. And I'm like, I'm not really into science stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm getting all this science information and different things about the internal workings of this reality, the human experience, our hearts are being portals and shit like that. And different portals within our body that connects us to the other worlds and things like that. So I'm getting all this random information I never would have ever thought of in my own brain. I'm just like a chill, funny person. I'm not like, I'm like, damn, what the hell is this? And so now what's weird is That's what's weird. But what's interesting, over these last years of dealing with my guides, I've now become way more scientific. Now I'm watching more science shows. I'm watching more science stuff. And it's just really weird how I've noticed parts of my personality change. No, I'm not saying I'm possessed, because I can feel I'm still me, but I can definitely feel that for whatever reason, my guides wanted me to open up to this part of myself. And I think that's why they also chime in and give us random downloads, because I think what our guides half the time are doing is opening ourselves up to aspects of ourself that's already thriving or exists. Meaning that I feel like sometimes we have a cloak over ourselves. Like we have a, you know what I mean? Like a cloak. Is that a good word? I think that's a good word. Cloak. We have like a thing over our mask, like something blinding us, something distracting us. We have our emotions, we have to worry about our finances, which is understandable. We have to be humans. We have to take care of our life. We have drama with family or friends. We have to worry about our love life. Oh, I'm lonely. Oh, there's so many things that's going on. Or politics, like you said, like, the nasty, stupid energy of politics. And then the world anger, there's so much drama going on, chaos. And so we're constantly being bombarded. And so, but underneath all of that, we have all of the, I think our guides are just trying to help us remember who we are while we're trying to be, fulfill our purposes, plural purposes. We have multiple purposes, I'm sure, in just one lifetime. But I do believe that, kind of like we were saying earlier, that anything and any experience and any person can be a guide. As much as we have spirit guides, which are obviously rigorously trained to even be a guide. They had to complete, the reincarnation cycle and things like that. So they're done, they're evolved, blah, 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 blah. But I do believe that an everyday human such as you, me, and even someone at the grocery store, at the market, at the restaurant, any one of us are human guides in this physical plane. Each time we're able to help somebody, each time we're able to help someone remember the good inside of themselves, remember the love within themselves, and that they are worthy of love and good things. And if we're able to help someone of that, I do believe that is the same thing as a spirit guide. It's just in human form, a human guide, really. And I believe all experiences, everything, are guides and teaches us. And every single relationship, friendship, acquaintanceship we have is all guides. And I think our spirit guides literally utilize the human guides in our everyday interactions to, again, help us along our way. So you see how everything's one big oneness, interconnected web,
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. We've gone deep. We've gone straight in deep, but I want to kind of bring it back to basics about of course we would, about the concept of the spirit guide. So you've talked about a few different types of guides. You've talked about those highly adept, trained spirit guides in the spirit realm who are here to communicate with us and guide us into like closer alignment with our soul selves. And then we've got, say, human guides who we're kind of destined to intersect with at certain points in our life to activate or awaken new knowledge or new perspective or more alignment within ourselves. You also mentioned who I know is Zolo, who is a different type of guide. So if you could talk to me a little bit about the different types of guides, if there are any you haven't mentioned yet, and the different kinds of roles they play.
Yes. So there are so many different ways a guide can manifest. Great question, actually. This is so exciting for me. I'm getting my rocks off right now just by talking about it. Oh, shit. But sorry, I can't help myself. I'm sorry, I can't help the joke. But seriously, I get so fucking excited talking about it. It just energizes me. So yeah, there's different kinds of guides. So we have, like I was saying about my spirit guides, although that's what's considered a galactic guide or alien in nature. A lot of us on this planet, whether we knowingly or unknowingly, do intersect and do interact with alien guides. They do exist. And so some of us have what's called galactic guides, which means they manifest in the form of a galactic from a different planet, different star system. And I find that people usually with those kind of guides, they've either spent an incarnation or a lifetime as an alien being in some point in space-time continuum, or that for whatever reason, your energy just fucking links up with them. Don't know else, but usually it's the incarnation. You've spent some kind of time with them or something, or there's some kind of purpose you have in this life that attracts those alien beings to be your guides. So we have what's called galactic guides. Then we have what's called, these are the cool ones, elemental nature guides, like, those nature spirits like Tinkerbell and gnomes and the nature spirits. So technically with the nature spirits technically are available anywhere outdoors and gardens and beautiful places. Technically they're everywhere, but they can be personally assigned to you if your purpose in this life deals with anything environmentalism, something with the environment. If you are just a nature lover in general, or you're like an outdoorsy, you camp outside a lot, you tend to attract those kind of guides. So they do exist. I know it sounds so whimsical, like Tinkerbells and shit, but elemental or nature spirits, they do exist, and they can become our guides. We also have what's called, I would call them like humanoid looking guides, where they look like you and me, I guess, because I see I'm clairvoyant, so I see a lot of everything. So I would say they look like human. I guess if you're, let's say someone, for example, is trying to meditate and they're like, I want to meet my guide. You ever see those, meet your guide meditations? I think everyone who's probably listening has probably encountered one of those, like, meet your guide meditations, where it's like you meditate and you visualize meeting your guide or something. So in those kind of cases, you can meet what's called like the human looking ones. And technically, the human ones, or they look like it, they are just balls of light. Technically, everything, you and me underneath this cage, is technically a ball of light, technically. But in certain cases, guides play off someone's personality. So if they know someone's going to freak out by appearing a certain way, they'll just appear regular human in a meditative like state. Does that make sense? And outside of that, what else kind of guides? Then we also have animal guides. So I'm sure we all know animal guides, right? So yes, animal guides do exist. The cool thing about animal guides is they pick us. Usually before we incarnate on this planet, our guides and we pick each other. But the animal guides, they come through with in different chapters in our lives. So they won't be here for the long haul like a lot of our guides are. So a lot of our guides are usually here from birth until death. Some of them, in rare cases, can be switched out. Depends on what kind of choices you made. Some of them, in rare cases, can be switched out, depending on whatever. But animal guides, they pick us. So for example, if you are someone who's really nervous and you have something coming up, and let's say it's a speaking engagement, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to speak in front of these people. I don't want to be in front of people. I'm so scared. What would happen would be you would get a lion animal guide, because lions are like bold, courageous, fearless. You pounce, go after you want with confidence. And then once you face that obstacle, they're gone, And so guides can show up like that. Guides can also really show up as literally color. I also wanted to mention that. So oftentimes in my sessions, like, I will see guides, they will look like a being, but they may have an aura. So let me really break this down. So if you are a visual person, you can see an alien face in your meditation, or you could see a human face, or you can see a body. And let's say you see a color with it. So, as you know, everyone has electromagnetic fields, right? Every being does, right? So it can exude colors. Now, so that's one part. But sometimes guides will literally show up as a color for someone, and that's it. I think some people may dismiss it and say, well, it's just a freaking color. That's all I keep seeing. It's nothing. But colors are just as alive as everything else. And sometimes, for whatever reason, a guide can choose to manifest as a color or colors for you. If every time you choose to connect and you close your eyes and you're meditating, and every time it's the same color no matter what, that's not random at all. So just like everything else, so is colors. And sometimes they choose to manifest as color. It just depends on the personality of that person. And that's what I've realized over the years. Guides can also manifest as trees. That is also something too. Trees are guides too. So basically whatever form, and that's a beautiful thing, is that they can manipulate energy. They can manipulate the atom structure of anything. So just like any spirit, just like our deceased relatives, they can manipulate the air to push a bird to come near you, to show you I'm around, So any spirit technically can manipulate or manipulate atoms and molecules and things like that. And so basically guides are no different. And so they have many, many forms, but I feel like the most common forms would probably be like the humanoid forms, where it's like, real quick. Some guides take the visuals of what they look like in a past life if they choose human. So if you see someone who looks really like ancient and stuff. Like, let's say you're you're like, I'm going to meet my guide, and all of a sudden you keep getting visions of Egypt. Like, what the hell? That could signify a past life you and this spirit guide could have shared. And so that also, I've seen that happen in a lot of sessions. I find that a lot of us actually have been in ancient Egypt. I think a lot of us actually incarnated, sorry, get off track, my ass is off track, but just in a general comment, a lot of us on this planet right here and right now have had incarnations in ancient Egypt or in Atlantean times. And for some reason, a lot of us are back here right now. And it makes sense if you think about it, where there's so like, if you really think about the last 5 to 6 years, there's been such a heavy importance on spirituality, or like a big boom all of a sudden, of people really like being interested in it. And so a lot of us have came back from those times. We're trying to do it differently, trying to do it, bring it back into this world, but in a different way. So random, but just want to let you know that also guides, if they show up looking old or from a different time period, it could be them choosing a past life that they may have spent with you, or just something they liked about that era. So that's another way they can show up as well.
That's so cool. So for me, I'm not particularly like visual. I have a few guides. Well, when I go into the Akashic Records, for instance, eventually my visualization of that process evolved, and it literally is in Egypt, which it never was to begin with, which is pretty interesting. And one of the guides that I meet there, who's the gatekeeper for me and lets me in, is this kind of old wizard man, which is pretty cool. But apart from that, I don't really see guides. I get guidance. I get intense messages. I've shared them on this podcast before. I share them on my live streams. So for people who aren't particularly visual or don't feel connected just yet with their kind of psychic gifts, how can we communicate with our guides? You talked about the first signals they send us are through repeating numbers, angel numbers, perhaps images of particular animals and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of that first step is around us just accepting and trusting that they are messages. But like, how, if you're not visual, do you communicate, and how do they communicate with you?
Okay, it's a really good question, because you're absolutely right. Not everyone is visual. And that's the beautiful thing about humanity. And so they always find another freaking way. So if you are not a visual person, my advice is to rely on your other senses, which is most common is going to be the emotional spectrum, your emotions and your thoughts. 95% of the time, even with me being clairvoyant, is through thoughts. And I think that's going to be the mind fuck. If you're an overthinker or you overanalyze a lot, you're that kind of person, it can be hard to distinguish what's a thought from spirit or a feeling from spirit and what's mine, right? And so basically what you can do is, if you are wanting to just connect and you're not visual, you can just, get into like what they call a high vibrational state. Because you gotta, as long as you're not depressed, like too like angry, I feel like fear, anger, and all the heavy emotions kind of makes it harder to connect. It's like a heavy barrier. But as long as, let's say you're just neutral. And so what you can do to connect, you can set an intention and say like, I intend to connect to my spirit guide, blah, 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 blah. Let's say you go through that whole thing. I intend to connect to you, send me some messages. So let's say you're just waiting, because that's really what it is. Waiting. I got to tell you that most messages from spirit pop up within the first 5 to 10 seconds. It is very quick because of the different frequencies of this planet and up there. So it's a lot. They're quick. And so it gets sent here very quick. And so if you find yourself, usually the best way to know with, like finding the messages is that spirit will, it will be an instant thought. It will be so quick that you don't have time to overthink it. So oftentimes they'll come through thoughts and feelings. So basically, don't try too hard to get visions. Yes, it's great if you can, but it's like, there's so many gifted psychics that can't see anything, but they can feel, hear, or think it. And that's all that really matters, because that's all it really is. It's like, and so let's say you ask for a message and you get a quick thought. Don't write it off and don't dismiss it and say, this must be me. Our logical mind takes over all the time and dismisses it and say, I'm just making it up. So you want to make sure when you're trying to connect in the beginning, don't say the words, I'm making it up, because it'll take you out of your connection. It implies doubt. When there's doubt within you, doubt within your ability to answer or receive a message, it hinders a connection, when you're connected to the other side. So you just want to make sure that even if you feel like it might be made up, don't even say it. Just record the message down. My advice also for people just beginning, write down the messages, or if you're in a meditative state, audio record yourself. Because sometimes people I don't want to break my meditation by opening my eyes and writing. So just record yourself, audio, verbalize it. So what happens is over a period of time of you recording yourself, your logical mind will catch on and say, wait a minute, this doesn't sound like me anymore. So this is for all the people out there who are very logical or over analytical. This will help you kind of decipher what's your logical mind versus what's spirit. Also, spirit's messages, when it's through thoughts or feelings, it won't be triggering. It won't send you spiralizing. If anything, it will provide a lot of clarity. And oftentimes, keep your expectations in check, y'all, because it is usually, like I was saying before, it could be one word or a couple words. And then you have to use your intuition to kind of form what they're really trying to say. It is not until you get more comfortable and confident where you'll get a lot of long-winded messages. Like how you channel like very like, I like how you channel like actual longer messages. And that's because you've been doing it for quite some time. So guys, just like with anything in life, it's an exercise. The more you exercise your psychic muscle and your ability, the more you practice, the more you'll get more longer messages. But don't beat yourself up. If you're able to get a couple words and it really makes sense in your life and it makes you feel good, because that's another thing. You'll feel, not only will it come through a thought or a feeling, but your feelings will tell you, this feels right. This feels good. It doesn't feel like me. So knowledge of self, knowing yourself enough, knowing what's you and what's not you. Kind of like what I said earlier, like I would never think science. This is totally not me. And I knew right away, I don't fucking care about science. Why the fuck am I thinking this? So little things like that, just knowing yourself and knowing like, this doesn't really sound like me. And once you distinguish you, your confidence raises up like, oh shit. Yeah. So confidence is probably 90% of the work. Believing in yourself, 100%. Basically.
Yeah, the belief is so important. Another thing I've talked about a lot is the space, cultivating space, especially in the thought realm, because that's where you can observe what's your thoughts and what is coming from somewhere else.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely right. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. One thing as well that I think is really important is for people like you and I, especially you, given that you train other people in working with their guides, meeting their guides and working with their guides, is to be able to tell people that they can just take for granted that those messages that don't feel like they're coming from themselves are from somewhere else, they are messages of high wisdom. Because that was so powerful to hear that from you, that my guides were there at all times in support, 100% support all times, especially when you're going through like a dark night kind of period like I was when we met. I felt so isolated and so alone, and it wasn't just on the spiritual journey, it was my whole life. And I clearly was in a process of initiation at that point, because everything opened up for me once I navigated through that darkness. But to know that there was a team, and I want to ask about this, the team of guides, a spirit team, there with just who had my back, and all they wanted was for me to try. I didn't even have to be successful. I just had to be in the world and try, be myself, connecting with my authenticity. That's all they wanted. That was so comforting for me, and such a huge release of pressure and stress. Is that really all I have to do here? Like, what is all this extra pressure I'm putting on myself? So I think the other thing that you can feel by connecting with the guides is this sense of comfort, and it shouldn't feel like pressure. So if you're placing pressure on yourself to have a certain type of connection with your guides, take that pressure away, because it can take any form. And the first step, really, at least in my experience, was just accepting that they were there helping me at all times.
Oh my God. So true. So beautiful. You said it perfectly. Yes. You're absolutely right. It has never been about the outcome. I think that we live in an outcome-based world because it's black implies white, duality, right? So it obviously makes sense why our brains are so concerned with, universal law, cause and effect. Well, I did this, so it must do this, right? But you're absolutely right. They don't care about the outcome. No one really does. That's the funniest part about this whole life. And I think that's the biggest, I feel like God's sense of humor, if you think about it. It's never been about the outcome. don't really give a damn how it ends. It just really what energy you use in the midst of the journey. We're constantly in motion, right? Energy's constantly in flux, and our guides are just here to say, you know what? I'm glad you fucking tried. You didn't want to get out of bed today, but your ass did, and I'm glad. That's huge. And that's what it's about, is doing something that we thought that we couldn't. Even if it's something like, for people who really suffer through like deep, deep anxiety, a lot of us do on this planet. I do, we all do. And so it's like, if you're suffering through deep anxiety, and let's say you didn't want to, I don't want to run errands today. I don't want to pick up the phone and to make appointments and call this person. And I don't want to do this. But you still do it. That is just as remarkable as being a millionaire on their side. That's what I always get as messages for them. That is just as remarkable as the most achievements, because we're an achievement-based society. But the best, quote, in quotation marks, achievement that we can do is taking some kind of action through belief in ourselves, despite our circumstances, despite the heaviness. And they're right here walking my side saying, hey, I'm just proud you got out of bed. Like, it is not that serious, guys. Like, I think it's just we've been so conditioned in this world to think that, like, what is success? What is achievement? What is expectations? And we think that, you can't take what we do in the third dimensional realm and apply it to their realm, because they live in a creative, childlike, joy-like realm. So it's like we're trying to connect to spirit guides using logic and third dimensional reasoning. And that's just never going to work. It's not going to fly. You're going to constantly feel like a, quote, failure. The same human traits will continue. You'll constantly feel like a failure if you're going to apply the same things that you do in this world. But think about the shit we do in this world. Does it even make us feel better? Always feeling like a fear of a failure, And so it's like, they don't want to see us that. That's why they're like, the fact that you had the feeling to connect to me, that's good enough. And I will meet you halfway, because that's all they do. They meet us halfway. So as long as we believe in ourselves, at least to say, you know what, I feel like I want to connect to a guide. I want to get to know someone. I feel finally compelled to do it. They're just happy for that moment. That's a life-changing moment in their eyes. What we consider as, it's just, I'm struggling though. All we see is our struggles in connecting. But what they see is something different. So if we as humans start to train our minds to see the world through how spirit sees the world and sees us, that we're not failures just because we didn't get the gods are and the spirits say this today. You know what I mean? Like, not all of us are going to get all that shit, and that doesn't make us any less of a person because we can or cannot connect as strongly as another person. We have to do it in our own way through self-acceptance. And that's a big lesson for all of us humans, right? We got to accept ourselves and where we're at, and understand that, just like with anything in life. Remember everything new we started? Remember how fearful if you think about anything new you've ever tried in your life, whether it's a new job, meeting a new person, or, something that's new, and we're scared and we're like, oh my God, I don't know. I'm going to just shy away from this because I don't know. But then we do it, and then we do it little by little. And then like a year later, we're at this job. I'm like, oh, it's easy. That's the same thing for connecting. I'm like, oh, this is nothing, It's the same shit. And so it's just so important for, and I'm glad, like you said, that they're just here to comfort and reassure us that we are doing the right thing. Just by having the yearning to connect makes us connected. It's that simple.
Yeah, so beautiful. While you were talking, I had this vision, and like I said, I'm not even that visual, but I had this vision of, like, I see fear as a portal. It's a portal of transformation, and anytime we confront our fear and move through it instead of avoiding it, we go through a breakthrough. Like, the breakthrough happens in the fear, and that they're like invisible helpers holding our hands as we walk through those portals. They're behind us, they're in front of us, leading the way, and it's so comforting, and so it actually helped build my confidence a lot. That those people as well that have been with me before I was born will be with me after I leave this planet, and the whole time I'm here. Don't care how well I do. They just want me to experience. It's just amazing. So I want to talk to you about spirit teams. Who is it? Do they all hang out together? I feel like we all have spirit teams. When I do readings for people, I ask them for their spirit team to come and like join in my energy and provide messages. So like how do you describe like how they hang out together in groups?
Yeah, it's funny. You said it perfectly, the spirit team, because I do the same thing like in a reading, or I call in like your spirit guides, their loved ones, this, and this, the whole team, the whole gang, right? It feels like with the spirit teams, like, are they hanging out on the other side? I feel like when the intention is set by someone here on earth, like for example, in a reading, like when you mentioned the spirit team in a reading, they all come together. They are connected through the person that they're all equally helping. So they all technically, it's like, it's interesting. It's like one consciousness in a weird way. It's like they're all different beings, but they're all here, but they're all the same. Like they're not the same. I don't want to make it jumble them all. They're all different. But what I mean is that when you call the intention, they all are together at that moment. But do I think they're just completely hanging out all the time? No, not necessarily. But that's just my thought. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know shit. I go with the philosophy. What was that philosopher? He says, rule number one, I don't know anything. I swear to God, someone said that. I think it was like, I don't know anything. And that's how I try to live my life. Like, look, I don't know shit, but I know some things, but I don't know shit. But in my personal thoughts, I just don't know if they're hanging out all the time. But I feel like the only thing that I intuitively feel is through the intention. Like when you set the intention for a reading and when I set an intention for a spirit team, all of them conjure up together and each one of them has a piece of knowledge and information that is going to benefit you and the client, or mostly the client because you're connected to the client's spirit team technically and your own spirit team. So it's like your spirit team and your client's spirit team, everyone's come together. And also this works in relationships. Same thing if you're in a relationship with someone, your spirit team and their spirit team is obviously interacting, sharing nuggets of information. How can let's say you're in a relationship with some guy and it's like, okay, how can he show her this lesson and they can learn this from each other. And so they do chime in like that. So the spirit teams do chime in when it comes through whoever you're connected with at that given moment. It doesn't have to be a relationship. It can be anything. It could be connected to helping someone random on the side of the road. Whatever it is, everything leads you from your spirit team, and their spirit team gets together and says, okay, they're going to meet at this exact time so they can help get through this and learn this lesson and he's going to help her, she's going to help her, and vice versa, and things like that. That's where I feel like they really intersect.
Yeah, fantastic. So the way you were describing that, I was seeing kind of fragments of one whole, that it's kind of like flashing the bat symbol and they all know where to go.
Yes!
But I set the intention. I call them into my energy field and we all have a conference in my energy field.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly. That's you perfect vision. The Batman symbol is a perfect symbolism. I love you. That's perfect. That's exactly what it is. It sends a signal and everyone's like, all right, let's get in. They need. Oh my God.
What about like interference? Do our guides interfere? Obviously, at the very beginning, you talked about free will and how even just to make connection with them to begin with, there needs to be part of us consenting with our free will. But are there any moments in our lives where our guides or spirit team will interfere with something that's happening because it's not part of our destiny, or are there any reasons for them to do that, and does that ever happen?
Wow, great question. So what I believe is that, there is a law of no interference technically, and so they can send signals and signs. That is true. But when it comes to what you said, you asked a really good question about if we're completely off hinge, like completely off the path, like completely going down a weird path. I would say this, they can interject, but it's still, your free will needs to still be interacting with it. So they will send an even bigger sign. It will be so noticeable, but you need to utilize your own will to understand it. Sometimes they'll take something so literal. They'll even have a person, they'll send someone your way and say the actual words of what you need to do. If someone randomly, let's say you were thinking about getting out of someone was like, I'm in a bad relationship, but I'm too scared to leave them. And then all of a sudden, the girl runs into a person, one of her friends, and her friend says, oh, man, I heard this bad story. This girl was in a weird, bad, abusive relationship, and it didn't really went horribly. And that's a ding, ding, ding. It's a sign. You know what I mean? Or it's like someone telling you constantly, hey, maybe you should leave a relationship. It's like they'll send you very noticeable. So when it gets to the point where you're completely off your path, they will kick it up 10 times notches. No more numbers, no more. I'm talking about big things so noticeable in your face. But you still need your free will to recognize, to be aware. That is something they can't force anyone to do, no matter how big and noticeable, a bright light shining. They will do something very so obvious. That's the thing. They get obvious when you're really off the path. They'll get really obvious. Little numbers and shit, that's just little reassurance. But the big stuff, really obvious signs, something you were just thinking about, and then now you can't stop seeing it everywhere, and it like won't, you know what I mean? Those are just like words like, hello, pay attention. But you need to utilize your own free will. They technically can't make a choice for you. They can't take you off the path you're on. You still need to have the free will to become aware of it. You need to be, yeah, it's still free will, baby. Still free will. It's very heavy in this realm. Very serious in this realm.
Okay, one more question. Are our guides waiting for us when we die?
Yes, they are part. They are one part of who's waiting. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yes, we have everyone there. The whole spirit team, basically, loved ones, ancestors, beings, galactics, God, Jesus, anyone, whatever you're interested in, everyone will be there. So it's literally a reunion because it's like, damn, look at that video game we just played together. That's really what it is. We're all we're playing a video game within ourselves. It's not, they're not playing it. They're just a part of it. But there's a part of yourself up in the higher realm that just plays a physical video game. And then we all reunite after the game, like, whoo, what a game, right? That's what a play, what a movie,
Yeah.
You know, what a great life, what a great movie, what a great video game.
That's awesome. Okay, well, we've been talking for a while, so it's probably time to wrap up now. So I want to thank you for joining in your energy with me and all the listeners. I really appreciate your time and all the wisdom you shared with us today. Before we close out, I just wanted to ask you if you have any offerings you wanted to promote or how people can work with you one-on-one.
Okay, yeah. And by the way, thank you so much for bringing me on. I absolutely love you and love your energy. And it's an honor and a blessing to be in your energy space. Just wanted to say that. But yeah, so actually I do psychic development classes. So if you're really into the stuff that we talked about today, I do psychic development and mediumship development. So if you like mediumship and you want to contact the dead, I also teach that. I also do the spirit guide class, as you know, as mentioned by you. And then I also do regular readings. So literally like readings about like what's to come in the future or what do you need to work on, regular readings. And I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, I also do past life sessions. That's also what I do. I also do past life readings. And actually this month of October, I have a whole sale going on because it's October. You know, it's spooky season. It's the veil is thin, as they say. So yeah, I have a sale all month, literally from now up until November 1st. So yeah, and my website is goldenvee.com. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you. So thank you so much once again.
That's so awesome. I'll definitely put the links to your website and your services in the show notes. And if people want to connect with you on socials, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, on Instagram. Try TikTok, but I'm like, I'm not consistent, man. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm trying, but I'm not. So on Instagram, which is at Golden Vee. Now you would think I didn't luck out. I could not get the gold in with the E. So it's GOLDNVE. It's basically Golden Vee without an E. So sorry, it's a good username. Got taken up. Damn.
I highly recommend following V on Instagram because not only do you share this amazing wisdom, you also do some incredible art.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my art. I totally, oh my God, I forget. Yeah. So my artwork, yeah, I use that. I create from my dream state a lot. I usually wake up with the vision already planted, or sometimes I'll be laying in the bed and then I just see a random vision and then I'm like, oh, let me create it. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I haven't done artwork in like a couple weeks. So now I'm thinking about it. Now I think I might do something.
I love it. It's got this vibe of like a cosmic collage. It's amazing. You guys should all check it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. I hope we can do it again in the future. And I definitely encourage everyone to go and listen to V's podcast, Dimensions of the Soul. I'll put the link in the show notes to that as well. Thank you so much for your time, V, and I hope you have a good day.
All right. Thank you. You too as well.
I hope you enjoyed that fun and enlightening conversation with V. I encourage you to check her out and even book in a session with her if you resonate with her vibe. She's really wonderful to work with. If you'd like to work with me, head over to the show notes for links to work with me one-on-one. or visit my website, theinitiatespodcast.com. Thanks again for sharing your energy with us. I'll see you next week.